Here are 3 tips to help you dominate your dynasty leagues this offseason.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Magdziuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head over to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Kate Magdziuk. You can follow her on Twitter at Kate Magdziuk. We've got a special show for you guys today. We're going to take a look at 3 dynasty tips, advice, whatever you want to call it, to help you dominate your dynasty leagues this offseason and during the season. But before we get to that, Kate, you have a special announcement you want to share.
I do. Unfortunately, guys, this has been an incredible ride, but today is my last show with the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. I am very excited to announce I've accepted a full-time position with Yahoo Sports as an editor with the breaking news team, which is such an honor. It's been a fantastic ride. I'm going to miss this show so much. We're coming up on our 5-year podiversary, Marcus.
So sure. I didn't know that was a word, but sure.
It's bittersweet, but I've so enjoyed getting to know all of you everydayers over the last 5 years and help you dominate your dynasty leagues. But it's time for me to pass the torch. I don't know what is next necessarily, but Marcus, luckily you're here to continue guiding the ship.
And you'll be back. Listen, you're just not going to be here every day. You'll be back plenty of times as a guest as we get you ready for the upcoming season. So this isn't a goodbye forever. It's just till next time.
Later.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. See you later.
All right. Let's stop being sad. Let's actually talk about some dynasty stuff because that's what you guys want to hear, right? So, Kate, let's come up with some ideas to help you improve your dynasty experience. What's one of the first tips you have for us?
You have to know your roster, know your direction of your team. And once you do know the direction that your team's heading, let's say there are 2 polar opposites here. You can either be a contending team or a rebuilding team. And the sooner you figure out which spot your roster is heading in, that's going to dictate pretty much every decision you make in terms of trades, in terms of waiver wire pickups. Knowing your direction will set the stage for success because otherwise you're in limbo.
Yeah. I think a perfect example of this is the Wednesday show we had with Matt Williamson, where he was talking about a trade that he made in the 3rd segment where he knows his team's not a contending team right now. So he traded away Justin Herbert in a Superflex league for Cam Ward, who significantly younger, and other pieces. And I think that's a great example of, hey, I know I'm not ready to win now. Let me start building up this war chest of draft capital and assets. So when I'm ready to make a run, I'll have the ammunition to go out and do it. When you know kind of where your team slots in compared to the rest of the league, it just makes every decision moving forward that much easier.
And a lot of the evaluation of your roster, like you said, once you kind of stack it up against your opponent's rosters in your league, you get a good idea. But a big part of that is also not just looking at your roster, not looking at, where you're weak, where you're strong, what draft picks you have. Another part of that is going to be looking at rosters from around your league and seeing where they look in comparison. Because I'm going to be honest, there are teams that I have on, maybe shorter bench leagues where my roster looks fantastic. But because it's a short bench league, everybody's roster looks fantastic. So
Great point.
Those are things you need to consider. There are times where, your roster might look kind of barren in the name department, but if it's a deep league, if you have deep benches, it's a 14-teamer, everybody's roster kind of looks a little rough. So it does take a moment of not just looking at sort of the name value on your own roster, but making those careful comparisons to see what else does the competition look like in your league.
I think it was Ryan McDowell who said a couple of years ago, like if you think your roster might need to be rebuilt and torn down, it probably does. And his idea is basically if you're not one of like the clear cut top 4 teams in your league, you should be considering rebuilding. Now, does that mean that you tear everything down to the studs or just completely trade everybody for draft picks? No. But this is where it does help to have some clarity about, okay, I know my roster is not good enough right now to win. What guys can I move on from a year too soon rather than a year too late? I do think that helps a lot.
Absolutely. And I do think the point just made here about, the fact that if you have to ask the question and take the time to ask, you're probably not a contender. And it probably is time to
Yeah.
look toward the future because look, if you finish middle of the pack every single year, you're not necessarily going to get that high draft capital that can land you an Ashton Denty, or an Amarian
Yep.
Hampton, or a Cam Ward if you're in a super flex league. Like being in the middle, much like NFL football, finishing in the middle is never a good thing
No.
because
No.
you just kind of end up in limbo. And I think that that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that dynasty managers will have when maybe they have the rose colored glasses on looking at the roster and they're like, well, maybe if this goes right, if this goes right, if this goes right, I'll be a contender. If you have to have that many qualifiers on your evaluation of your roster,
Exactly. Yeah.
probably not great.
Most of the time, the teams that we see win championships in dynasty leagues are the ones that just have an overwhelming amount of talent where they're benching guys, or not benching guys. They just have guys that aren't starting that would start for 90% of the other teams in your league. And unless your roster's like that, you should at least consider some moves to maybe try to get there, because that's what we're trying to. The goal here, at least my goal, is to build a super team, right? A team. I want to build a team, Kate, that makes everybody else want to quit the fantasy league. Like that's always been my goal. And I think Matt's had the same idea. Like I want to build this superhuman team that everybody just rolls their eyes at when they look at it, because that's how strong it is. That should be the ultimate goal. So if your team's not even close to that, and you, like you mentioned, you need to have 2, 3, 4 things go right for you to even be a contender, probably should think about starting over.
All right. So let's say you evaluate your roster. You followed our sage words of advice here, and you say, all right, I think I need to rebuild. It's time I look at myself in the mirror, take a good look at the old eyeballs there, and really face reality. Where do you start in your rebuild, Marcus?
Well, the first part is, for me, I'm looking at the running backs because those are the guys whose value drops off the quickest. So I'm looking to see, hey, can I trade my Tony Pollard, still a good player, for some draft capital or a younger receiver or a younger tight end? That's the first part that I'm looking at. And then I'm just looking at any of the older players on your roster, whether it's a receiver. Maybe you have someone like Tyreek Hill, who I know his value has gone down, but is still going to be incredibly valuable to some dynasty owner during the season, because he's going to produce like a low end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2. I think if you start there, you'll have a good foundation. And then just try to keep the guys that are young that you think can be cornerstones, and then get rid of all those guys that are roster cloggers that we talked about. The guys that will never be a wide receiver 2 and just don't have that much upside. There's no point in trying to hold on to those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are in a contender, or not in a contending window, the best people to target for those types of trades are going to be the ones that are at the top of the pecking order here. Who
Yes.
are the people that are going to be competitive in your league? Those are the ones you're going to want to trade with, and those are the ones you're going to want to offload some of those assets to. But
Yep.
the trading tips will not stop there, Marcus.
No. Yeah, let's get to some more ways to better trade in your dynasty leagues. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you are ready to go. Dive into hundreds of premium titles, including EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6, my favorite game right now. I would love to play with you guys. Just let me know. Hit me up. You can do it as easily as you stream your favorite TV shows. Listen, there's several times where either I'm on the road or I'm somewhere where I would love to play some Call of Duty, but I don't want the hassle of packing up all my Xbox stuff. But now I don't need to. I just grab my Amazon Fire TV stick, plug it in, and I'm ready to go as long as I bring my paired controller. Head over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Okay, let's talk about trading in Dynasty leagues. And this is something that takes the most skill. So what are some tips and things to maybe avoid when trying to trade in your Dynasty league?
My best advice when trying to execute a Dynasty trade is to not trade with blinders on. What do I mean by that? I mean, you have got to look at the roster you're sending a trade offer to. Like, if you're trying to offload these players, Marcus, don't just offload them thoughtlessly. Do not just offer them to literally anybody with draft picks. Please, oh, please look at the roster that you're trying to trade with and see, does this trade even make sense? Because I'm going to tell you, when I'm on the receiving end of trades and I can tell they did not take 1 second to look and see if that was actually a compatible trade whatsoever. Not even a fair trade. A fair trade.
What's worse? That just the unsolicited trade like that, where it's so clearly not in your favor, or the trade splaining that goes on, like, hey, this is an awesome deal for you. Let me write 15 paragraphs on why you should do this deal for my crappy RB3 for your wide receiver 1.
Okay. Well, the trade splaining has to be like rule number 1. So maybe that's the worst. And the worst of it, the worst of the worst is when you get those messages, right? And you open them up and it's like, well, you know what? This player is really good. This player would be really good for your roster. Then maybe you should keep this player for your roster. Don't do that, guys. Don't do that. What it does and what all of these behaviors that we're just talking about do is just, it loses your credibility as a trader within your league. And it's not to say that you can't get deals done if that's how you move, but being a thoughtful trader is, I think, just a respectful way to behave in your league, and it is a respectful way to let dynasty managers know that, like, you know, you're actually putting thought into the things that you're sending out.
All right, so I'm gonna just give you some of my advice from trading. I've been in dynasty leagues for some 17, 18 years now. Like, I've been playing it a long time. The worst way to get fair value for your trade is say, hey, I want to trade this player. It's a fire sale. Come get him. Like, you're always going to get the 75 cents on the dollar offers there. So don't do that, right? But this is where it's important to know your league mates, right? Like, if you know my friend Tyler loves Dallas Cowboy players, right? And I have CeeDee Lamb, I'm going to go up to him first and be like, hey, what can we get done for this player on your roster? I know he's going to come after my CeeDee Lamb, right? Like, and that's how you start a trade. So if you kind of know which players your league managers like and don't dislike, that'll help go a long way in trading. I don't do the trade splaining too much. It's more like, hey, I like this player. What's something that could work out for you? Or sometimes I'll play it coy and be like, hey, I like this player, but I'm actually targeting this guy. I'm not telling him. Let's work on a trade that maybe eventually we'll slide over to that. But there are so many things that go wrong with trades and trade offers I've seen between the trade splaining. I don't know about you, but if you get an awful trade offer to start, it kind of just discourages me from even wanting to get a deal done because we're that far apart on deals. Trading can be tough.
Trading can be very tough. And there is a little bit of like psychology element to the
of
trading
course.
factor where, you know, you don't want to be too desperate. You don't want to be too needy. You want to be, I think, close enough to a deal that actually seems feasible when you make that initial offer. Because sometimes it's just insulting. And there are times where I've received an offer that I thought was so far out of the ballpark that I'm like, there's not really a point in
No.
spending much time negotiating this trade because
Um,
we're not on the same planet. We're not in the same zip code. We're not in the same state, tri-state area. We are on different planets right now. And that all of these things come together and it just makes it really hard to actually manage your dynasty roster if you're not somebody that's viewed as a good faith
yeah.
trading partner.
And I will also say, as I've gotten older and I just don't care so much about the negotiating back and forth. Like if I want a player, rather than like trying to send 4 or 5 different offers, I'm just going to give my best offer up front. If they don't like it and they don't accept it, that's fine. And maybe there's like one counter offer, but that's how I've gotten a lot of these trades done. It's like, hey, I think this guy is worth pick 107. Here's my offer for you. Maybe they make a counter and we come back and we're good. But like trying to lowball and then kind of creep your way up,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't have the time for it anymore. And it does, honestly, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. And then guess what? The next trade that comes along that I want to make, probably going to scroll past your team because I know it's not worth the energy. And you never want to be that manager that sucks the energy out of the group, right? Don't suck
Yep.
the energy out of your league. Be somebody that people are excited to talk to in trade talks and be somebody that's
Well,
open-minded, and you're going to
I've
get a lot more deals done that way. You don't need to win every single one, right?
no. I was going to say the last thing I wanted to mention, and I think I've said this before, is I've got a notebook here. Oops, there he is. Of every trade I've ever made in a dynasty league. And the point isn't to like try to show off how many trades I've done, but it's more like, hey, these are the managers I know that I can come and talk to when I'm going to get fair trade offers and we can have a civil conversation. There are going to be teams in your league that just won't trade, right? And unfortunately, that shouldn't be the case in dynasty leagues. You should be sending out offers all the time, but there are going to inevitably be a couple teams that don't trade. If you know the ones that are more open to offers and that are more willing to be open-minded when it comes to offers, that can be very beneficial to you. So I suggest just writing it down, putting it into a Microsoft Word sheet. Like, hey, this is the trade I've done. This is how it's accepted. Boom, move on. It will help you long-term when it comes to making trades.
All right. One last thing that I'll say on trading is that you should not get discouraged if it doesn't look like your trades are working out right away. It usually takes, I think, 2 or 3 years before you really have any conceivable idea of how a trade has really played out in terms of like the butterfly effect of it all.
Yeah.
So don't get discouraged if it doesn't look like it worked out right away. Don't let that discourage you from making future trades. You're not going to win every trade.
No.
Yeah, the
That's not
goal
the
is not
goal.
to win every trade. It's to win your fantasy league.
Yes, and that's I'm glad you said that. The goal is not to win the trade. The goal is to make your team better. So, yes, if you put it on one of these fancy apps that show you, hey, this team got a better value, but if it actually makes your team better and it's helping the direction of your franchise and your dynasty league, who cares what the trade value chart says? And the other part of it, Kate, is if you really like that player, again, who cares? And we'll get to that next when we talk about our last tip for dominating your dynasty league. We'll get to it next. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner, your work doesn't stop when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That is where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. Here's how it works. You post your job, and then LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. It's no wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn has helped them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and the news never stops. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Kate, our last bit of Dynasty advice here is a simple one, but what is it?
Have fun.
Yeah.
Don't take this so seriously, guys. I know Dynasty is the closest you're ever going to get to managing an actual NFL franchise. Unless we're just so good at teaching you how to play Dynasty that you're like, I need to graduate to, real NFL management, and you work your way up. I don't think that's happening anytime soon, but let's not forget, we're playing fantasy football here. Draft players you like, have fun, and just have fun. It's so simple, but let's not forget we're playing a game.
So I had a problem with this a couple of years ago where I was a slave to ADP and value, right? Like I wanted to make sure that my team, everybody was maximized in terms of value. And I thought that's the best way that I'm going to win dynasty leagues. And honestly, didn't always work, right? Because if you're just a slave to the ADP and the value, you're never really taking a bold stand on anybody. When I've started to really enjoy fantasy is the last couple of years where I'm just acquiring the players that I like and I want to watch and I want to root for. And more often than not, Kate, like the players that I go out and acquire end up turning out to be really good. Like I'm not going to brag, but I'm going to give you an example. I was all in on Drake London and Brian Thomas Jr. last year. Like those are two guys that I tried to go out and get in every single dynasty league I was in because I really, really like watching them play. And I'm like, you know what? If I have to give up a Tyreek Hill for a rookie Brian Thomas Jr. who was being valued at like wide receiver 22 at the time, it's okay. I don't mind taking a loss on the value. And a year later, their ADPs are completely flipped, right? So It's just a good reminder to go get the players that you like, because on Sundays when you're watching the games and let's say name your player. Maybe your favorite player is CeeDee Lamb. That's a bad example because he's really well liked.
He's everybody's favorite
player.
player.
Yeah. Maybe it's Garrett Wilson. Maybe you're a Jets fan. And Garrett, you love watching Garrett Wilson play, but he's not being as valued as highly as Puka Nacua. Okay. And you want to trade Puka Nacua for Garrett Wilson in a second-round pick? Do it. Like, go enjoy your dynasty team. Enjoy your fantasy team. Enjoy your fantasy experience. That's the best advice I can ever give you.
And here's the thing. When you have players on your team that you like, you're also, I think, just a little bit more emotionally attached to your fantasy team. You're going to want to take care of it. You're going to want to tend to it a little bit more. Having players you like is so important for me. And I say this in Dynasty. I say this in redraft. There are times where I'll just pass on maybe a player that I know is valued a little bit higher in favor of a guy that, I just think I'd rather watch every single Sunday. And
well, can I give you an example of this in a rookie draft that literally happened this morning?
Absolutely.
And which is funny. We talked about this yesterday, but I think Matthew Golden is going to be a better dynasty and fantasy asset than Luther Burden. And I said it on Thursday's show, but I want Luther Burden on my team. Like I want to root for him. I want to watch him. So I drafted Luther Burden one spot ahead of Matthew Golden, and I feel great about it. And again, there's a very good chance that Golden ends up becoming the better player. And I think in general, I would advise people to go out and get Matthew Golden. But I want Luther Burden on my team. It's just I'm going to have a more enjoyable dynasty experience with him on my roster, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and some of this is just coming back to the fact that this is a game. It really is a game at the end of it all. I know we've got league fees and there's prize money on the line in a lot of your leagues, but
needy group chats. Yeah.
Group chats. But at the end of it all, it comes down to you and your roster and what's going to make this the most enjoyable experience. There are some players that I haven't historically liked, right? And
you know the names. We don't even have to say the name.
We don't even have to say any names. There are players that I have historically not liked, not rooted for, just in general. that I just haven't had on my teams. And guess what? Not having to worry about rooting for them every Sunday makes me a happier person. So yeah, maybe I'm coming at it from a grumpy perspective
That's all
in
right.
that, but like just as important as getting players you like to root for, I think it's important to look at the players. Like if you don't want to watch player XYZ every Sunday and you don't want to root for that player, get them off your team, trade them away. Like get what you can, because I don't get joy out of that. I want this to be the most fun experience, and usually for me that means drafting the guys I want to root for.
And the last thing before we head out is join leagues with other members that you want to play dynasty leagues with. I've been invited to a bunch of leagues where I just haven't known the people, or I don't necessarily like them, and it's because it's an appealing league or there's a big prize pool. You don't have that much fun playing in those leagues. I'm just telling you right now. The
Mhm.
leagues that you're going to have the most fun in are the ones where it's you and your buddies and you see them every weekend or every couple weekends, and yeah, you've got trades that you could talk about from years ago. Like those are the leagues you're going to get the most enjoyment from. So be very selective when it comes to picking your dynasty league, picking who's in your dynasty league. That makes all the difference in the world.
Oh yeah, play fantasy football with people you like, draft people you like. It makes the entire experience a lot easier, because I will say, when you are in a league with somebody maybe that they have bad trade offers and they're not
Mhm.
fun to negotiate, and you're
We've
not.
never been in those leagues together. Never.
No, never. But when you are, man, that can really kind of just press
Bring
the
you down.
disengage button. Like you're free falling from your dynasty roster because you're not
Yeah.
incentivized to manage that team. And there's
100%.
nothing worse than like a neglected dynasty roster that, I don't know, maybe just because the league's not all that fun or you're not enjoying the company of your league, like that, don't put your dynasty roster to waste because you're not with the right company.
100% agree. That's the most important thing, is making sure you have the right league members. It makes all the difference. So that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Go follow the show on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Go follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Magdziuk. Go check her out over on Yahoo, full-time over on Yahoo right now. You can follow me at Marcus_Mosher. Kate she'll be gone next week and beyond, but she'll be back on the show again, I promise. Kate, any final thoughts before we go?
Just enjoy. Enjoy. I'm excited to see what's next for Locked On Dynasty, but you're definitely not going to get rid of me permanently. I will be back in a guest capacity whenever I can possibly make it work. So, Marcus, it has been a pleasure. Everydayers, it has been such a pleasure helping you build your dynasty rosters. Let's go win some championships.
We'll see you guys right back here on Monday.